Transforming your life with hypnotherapy just got easier with your host, Julie from CoachingHypnosis.net.
Welcome back, dear listener, to Coaching Hypnosis. Yesterday, we hacked through the dense mountainous jungles of Haiti to analyze the terrifying biochemical and psychological reality of real-world zombification. Today, we're stepping back into the digital ether of the modern world. We are looking at a predator that doesn't need marine neurotoxins or ritual environments to paralyze a human will. They don't need to lock you in a room. They just need to access your smartphone, your dating profile, and your unexamined emotional vulnerabilities. Today, we break down the clinical reality of sweetheart swindlers, the cold-blooded machinery of the modern romance scam. Now, let's have a rapid reality check about how society views the victim of an online romance scam. The mainstream media loves to paint these targets with a patronizing, judgmental brush. They look at someone who wired their life savings to a blurry photograph of an oil rig engineer or a military doctor and dismiss them as simply naive, desperate, or foolish. We tell ourselves we are far too cynical, far too media literate to ever fall for a digital ghost. But let's look past that superficial judgment and be completely real as strategic operators. Modern romance scammers aren't just lonely people practicing internet deception. The top-tier syndicates, often operating out of highly organized corporate-style boiler rooms, are master-level behavioral profile architects. They don't run a clumsy, fast-moving con. They play a ruthless, multi-month-long game. They use precise linguistic mirroring, semantic emotional pacing, and cognitive isolation to build an entirely synthetic reality around a target. They don't steal cash by breaking into a bank. They manipulate the victim's neurochemistry until the victim willingly destroys their own financial security. Today, we decode the raw neurolinguistic mechanics of the manufactured soulmate. To understand how a sweetheart swindler completely overrides a target's critical faculty, you have to look at the concept of linguistic mirroring and matching. When a scammer targets an individual, they don't just send generic pickup lines. They thoroughly audit the victim's digital footprint. They analyze their social media posts, their music tastes, their heartbreaks, their core values. If the victim posts about feeling lonely after a divorce, the scammer instantly manifests as the exact corporate archetype of protective, empathetic stability. If the victim is deeply religious, the scammer's vocabulary is suddenly flooded with scriptural references and spiritual devotion. This isn't casual conversation, it's a highly calculated pacing induction. By feeding the victim's own syntax, belief, and emotional voids back to them, the scammer creates an immediate, intense illusion of profound destiny. The victim's brain, starving for connection, interprets this perfect linguistic alignment as the discovery of a once-in-a-lifetime soulmate. Once this deep, emotional rapport is secured, the scammer executes a multi-stage cognitive capture protocol. Step 1. Digital footprint auditing. Scan the target's social media and dating profiles to identify deep core vulnerabilities, unfulfilled emotional voids, and preferred syntax. Step 2. Linguistic mirroring and pacing. Feed the victim's exact values and vocabulary back to them over months, triggering a massive dopamine loop that builds a synthetic reality. Step 3. Crisis induction and financial bleed. Stage a sudden high-stakes emergency that forces the victim's nervous system into survival mode, driving them to bypass logic and wire the capital. The next critical phase is accelerated intimacy paired with cognitive isolation. The scammer moves the conversation off the official dating app and onto private encrypted messaging platforms like WhatsApp or Signal. This is immediate digital isolation. Over 3 to 6 months of relentless, hyper-frequent daily texting, the scammer initiates a profound dopamine loop. They flood the victim with round-the-clock validation, sending sweet morning texts and deep late-night professions of love. The victim's nervous system becomes utterly addicted to this constant chemical delivery. The scammer builds a beautiful, closed synthetic reality where they're planning to build a future home, a wedding, a life together, despite never once meeting in person. Let's look at the absolute sarcastic absurdity of what these syndicates manage to pull off. You have highly competent analytical professionals, senior financial analysts, school principals, retired business owners who genuinely convince themselves that the most logical thing to do when their wealthy international fiancé gets stuck in a fictional overseas customs prison is to liquidate their retirement accounts, take out a second mortgage and send $300,000 in cryptocurrency to a random digital wallet. It is the absolute peak of predatory emotional engineering. The scammer introduces a financial demand not as a request for cash, but as a crisis of survival for their shared future. If you don't send this money to clear my medical equipment from customs, I'll lose my contract and we can never be together. The victim's brain, trapped in an intense emotional trance, is forced into a state of panic. To refuse the money means admitting that the entire beautiful future they've invested months into is an absolute lie. To protect their own psyche from that devastating realization, the subconscious mind runs a profound confirmation bias, completely ignoring the screaming red flags, and executes the financial transfer. As strategic hypnotists and modern executive coaches, we must strip away the romance theatre to analyze the precise neurobiological levers these predators manipulate. They prove that if you could control a person's validation loop and access to connection, you can completely dissolve their long-term strategic execution capacity. The dopamine-driven critical crash. By bombarding the target with hyper-frequent, predictable validation, the scammer hijacks the brain's reward pathway. When the brain is saturated with a constant cocktail of oxytocin and dopamine, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logical skepticism and risk assessment, experiences a profound down-regulation. The victim loses the biological capacity to run effective reality testing. The sunk cost delusion. The longer the mirroring process continues, the more psychological capital the victim invests. Once they have spent months sharing their deepest secrets and building a fantasy future, the ego creates an intense resistance to any contradictory data. The mind will actively rationalize away oblivious lies, like broken webcams or cancelled flights, because the alternative truth is emotionally fatal. The induced crisis trance. When the scammer deploys a sudden financial emergency, they are utilizing a high-stress compliance induction. By making the request urgent, they deny the victim the time or mental space required to step back, regulate their nervous system, and apply critical logic. The victim executes a wire transfer in a state of pure reactive panic, focused entirely on ending the stressor. The romance scam industry is a multi-billion-dollar global syndicate, with law enforcement agencies tracking massive laundering networks across Southeast Asia, West Africa, and Eastern Europe. These syndicates have proved beyond a shadow of doubt that text messages, when precisely paced and mirrored over time, function as a highly effective long-distance waking trance induction capable of dismantling an individual's entire material security. The profound urgent lesson of romance scam cases is a visceral reminder that your emotional vulnerability, your deep human desire for connection, and your validation loops are incredibly sacred. And the second you allow an external voice, a digital mirror, or an unexamined emotional void to dictate your financial boundaries, or your sense of reality, you are surrendering your sovereign power. An ethical guide, partner, or coach will never seek to isolate you, exploit your need for validation to build a closed loop, or demand that you sacrifice your material security to prove your alignment. True, unshakable strength is about self-sourcing, knowing how to validate your own execution, heal your own emotional voids, and build your connection to the world from a state of grounded, independent reality. If you've realized that you're navigating high-performance professional pressure by letting your emotional vulnerabilities run wild in the background, seeking validation in unstable environments, letting your need for external approval hijack your strategic decisions, or hiding your loneliness behind an exhausting corporate mask that leaves you open to reactive, short-sighted choices, it's time to step out of the mirror loop and reclaim your strategic composure. If you're ready to clear that cognitive noise, ground your execution in undeniable present reality, and lead your business with a completely unburdened, self-trusting mind, I invite you to book your free 40-minute clarity call. Together, we'll dismantle the external noise, stabilize your nervous system, and install a powerful, unshakable subconscious identity focused entirely on your true present sovereign power. Remember, aligned subconscious plus healed history equals unshakable leadership. Thank you for listening. Align your mind. Visualize your future. Grow your business. Mindfully yours, Julie.